Welcome to IFAS Extension. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about wildlife and how to attract them to our gardens, because lots of times we're worried about wildlife that can cause problems for us or may cause problems for our landscape. But today we're going to talk about how to attract some of these wonderful wildlife. We all enjoy birds and butterflies and all kinds of wildlife, and we want to learn how we can enjoy them more and attract them into our landscape and perhaps provide them with food, nutrition, things that they need, as well as maybe a space to live. We are constantly taking some of those spaces away, so maybe this is a way to encourage new ones to come in. So today with me I have Ken Joelle, our Natural Resource Agent for the Extension Office. Thank you for coming and joining us. So we have lots of things out there that are problematic for us, but today we're going to talk about something kind of fun and upbeat and positive and how to attract wildlife.
Oh, sure. And, you know, this is kind of a neat topic for people to learn about. And it seems like people always want to, I don't know, explore different variations of attracting wildlife. I think probably the easiest way people can attract critters to their yard is start with a butterfly garden.
Right, very popular. People love butterflies. They're beautiful. They carry the wings, the expression of color and everything throughout the landscape. So if they're trying to put a butterfly garden together, what are some of the things they should know about or remember?
Well, pretty much anytime you're doing anything with wildlife, you have to take into consideration what's going to attract them. What are the habitat needs of the critters, butterflies, birds, and so forth that you're trying to attract? They always, of course, need to have shelter. Everything needs shelter. They need to have others of their kind so they can breed. They need to have space, and space is a little different for all the different critters.
Some need more, some need less.
Yeah, it's a matter of scale.
Okay.
And then, of course, water. And one of the big things, you know, people are concerned about is water. You know, how do they put the right type of water in their yard?
Sure.
And then shelter is another thing. And I brought a bat house with us. We could talk about that.
Oh, cool.
And then, of course, food. Those are all the components.
Okay, so if we have a butterfly garden, you mentioned water. Is that, we have a bird bath out there? Is that appropriate for butterflies?
Yeah, and what they can do, instead of using a bird bath in a very traditional way,
on a pedestal and all.
Yeah, actually you can do that. But what you'd want to do is put pebbles in the middle.
Okay.
And have like a little pyramid of pebbles in the middle, and even have some mud in there. There are some butterflies that like to land. They can't land on the edge of the bird bath. They can't land in the water, obviously. So what they need to do is land on the pebbles or land on mud, and then they use that little straw-like proboscis. They'll get that out there, and then they'll start sucking the water off the rocks. And they also use that to lap up some of the minerals, the salts and things.
Oh, that might be in the soil.
Sure. And, you know, everything needs salt of some sort in their life. So, yeah, something as simple as that. And another source of water, which people might not necessarily think about, is bromeliads. And, you know, they're those pineapple-looking plants.
Oh, yeah, they hold the water in the cups that they create, and that gives them water.
Sure. And that's a little tank of water, and that's the official term, the tank.
The tank, okay.
Yeah, not like a battle tank, but the tank. And what people can do is plant bromeliads in their landscape, and that's kind of like a reservoir of last resort. A lot of critters, frogs and a lot of other critters, lizards and things, get in there, and they actually rely on that little tank of water.
I have a tree frog right by my front door. There's a big bromeliad, and he goes down there and comes out every night, you know, because there's a light. So he's attracted to the plants, but he goes down into that little cover. Yeah. Very cool.
So doing something like that is very easy. And sometimes people worry about mosquitoes and things like that. You know, anytime you have water, open sources of water, people do worry about mosquitoes because, you know, mosquitoes do breed in fresh water.
Right.
So what people should think about is, you know, maybe cleaning the water sources out. If they're going to have a bird bath, why not tip it and refresh it once a week or so?
Every few days or so, you keep the larvae from hatching into adult mosquitoes.
And the other thing that they can do is use a little bit of vegetable oil and put that in the bird bath, and that creates a little bit of a film that mosquitoes really can't handle.
Okay.
You know, because when they're in their life cycle, they're submerged in the water, and they have to kind of poke out to get.
Oh yeah, the tail end holds out up to the water surface to breathe, and if you've got oil over it,
they can't do it. But you wouldn't want to use motor oil, of course.
No.
But something that would be
something that's biodegradable.
Vegetable oil.
Yeah.
And they actually do that in mosquito control. You know, on a large scale, there are products like Agnique that they use in canals and things that create that monomolecular film, a slick. and that's what that is. It's to keep mosquitoes controlled. The other thing people can do is using a product called BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, and that can be found in pretty much any garden center, especially the big retail garden centers. And you go to the pest control section, and they sell BT. It's Bacillus thuringiensis.
Okay, is it the Israelis, though, that does mosquitoes, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's...
Bacillus thuringiensis, there's another one that does butterfly caterpillars, so you don't want to use that one.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing to think about, too, because...
Make sure you're getting the right one.
Yeah, you would not want to put something in that's going to hurt caterpillars.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to have a bird bath for birds, it certainly would not be a problem if you had BT. And it's a natural soil-borne bacteria. It's one of the safest products that you have out there. It's not going to harm any birds that would land in the bird bath. And, you know, they need to get into that bird bath to preen. They've got a preening gland. And
they kind of just do a little washy thing there. It's really kind of cool to see them do that.
So, and then, of course, the butterflies like it, too.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't want to use the BT in that point.
Yes,
so
good point.
Refreshing the water would be a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, keeping the mosquito larvae out. And I guess they even have little fish that you can put into some things that, of course, might be very attractive to some birds.
Sure.
If you're putting them in there. Well, if we're going to put in a butterfly garden, all right, we have to have shelter, you mentioned. So, you know, you see lots of times people advertising butterfly houses. You mentioned the bat house. Are butterfly houses a good idea in Florida, or is there alternatives? Or?
Well, I don't think I'll ever see an adult butterfly in one, but what you might notice is maybe some of the pupal casings underneath it.
Okay.
When you're thinking about shelter for butterflies, they really need to have kind of an understory to hide in. So you want to have some fairly tall plants nearby that they can flutter around.
Like trees or?
Trees, shrubs, things like that.
Okay.
And in the landscape, you might want to consider putting some park benches or something like that. A little stool or a little table or something like that in your landscape, right in the middle of your butterfly garden. And what you might notice is that sometimes of the year, if you look underneath the bottom,
they'll hang underneath where they're out of the elements.
Pupa, If you go to Heathcote Botanical Gardens or some of the other botanical gardens, Port St. Lucie Botanical Gardens, don't look at everything that's real obvious out there. Get underneath things, and that's where you're going to start.
Lay down and look up, right?
Yeah, you have to think like the critter.
Very good. Very
underneath
good.
the tables, underneath the chairs, benches.
So that's the kind of shelter when you refer to that, then?
Yeah, and they need to have some place. They'll basically crawl away from, the caterpillars will crawl away from the areas where they're chewing on the plants, and they'll create their pupa someplace else.
Okay. But usually close by.
Close by, very close.
Close by to the food the caterpillars are eating.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
and that brings up a story you were talking about food. So food for the caterpillar and the adult is the same, different?
It's usually different.
Okay.
But you can intersperse them in the landscape.
Okay.
So I actually have some samples of some plants.
Okay.
And these are samples of plants that would be good not only for butterflies, but maybe for some other critters that, some birds and squirrels and things like that. Now, sometimes people will go and they'll put bird seed out.
Yes, for birds.
For birds.
Well, a lot of times we have people that live here, visit here, and they're from further north or areas where there's not food year-round for...
Yeah. It's not always a good idea to do that.
And there's lots of reasons why?
Yeah. What people want, they'll put bird seed out, for example, and they only want the birds. They don't want the rodents, the squirrels and raccoons and rats and
things. Oh, it calls them too?
Yeah, it gets all of them to come in. So my recommendation is to plant to attract. So you can plant to attract the butterflies. You can attract squirrels and birds to different plants. So knowing which plants are the best is really the key. Of course, stay away from anything exotic. Anything invasive, Melaleuca, Brazilian pepper, or any of that stuff, Australian pine, those really don't do much for wildlife. They really don't survive on those. So using something that's native.
Okay.
And if you ever wanted to know what was native, go to places like the Oxbow Eco Center, learn from a master naturalist, learn from a master gardener, learn from any of the botanical gardens. Ask people what are the native plants that are in the landscape.
Okay.
And they'll tell you what they are. Usually they can have a pretty good sense of that. So I was out in my landscape today and I was rummaging around some other landscape and adjacent properties. This particular plant, it's got a nice smell to it. You know what this is, of course.
Yeah, wax myrtle.
Wax myrtle, yeah. This is a nice plant. If you have it in your landscape, you'll notice that it's a nice plant. Cardinals love it. at certain times of the year, you'll see the cardinals just getting in there and attacking these plants because they'll get little berries on them, little seeds on them.
Yeah, I've seen cedar waxwings do the same thing because they're migrating through looking for food. There's no insects at the wintertime, but there's the berries. You're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, so it also has a very nice, strong, aromatic smell to it. Of course, I'm doing most of my work outside in the natural areas. I've never really noticed the smell before, because I don't often have them inside.
I like that smell.
But they call these wax myrtles for a good reason. They're a little waxy. And back in the olden days, they actually used to get candles. They could...
Right, barberry. They used to make the candles from the berries.
Yeah,
right?
and I think what they used to do is they'd wait for the berries to be on the plants, then they cut them down, probably a lot of them, and then get some water boiling, and they just steep the wax out. The wax would float to the surface, and then the rest of it would go down. And personally, I will just go to the store and buy a candle.
Yeah, right.
But for people that are maybe doing some pioneer days and things like that, that's one of the uses. So that's wax myrtle.
So that's a good one for birds. But it would also
Birds.
be a good place that could provide some shelter, perhaps, for a butterfly.
Sure, and you might see a butterfly kind of fluttering through it. Now, they don't like anything that's too thick because butterflies, their wings are very delicate. And, if it's likely that they're going to rub up onto a branch or something, they'll try to avoid that. So wax myrtle might be a tad bit too thick, but they might cling to the top and go over it, which is a form of protection right there. So wax myrtle is one that definitely is recommended. This other plant, Kunti, also called Zamia. Zamia is the genus. It's a really nice landscape plant, and you're familiar, of course, with the butterfly.
Right, yeah, the Atala.
The Atala.
Yeah.
They used to think the Atala butterfly was extinct. No more in the entire universe. They thought they were all gone. And lo and behold, we had some Atala butterfly caterpillars that were found eating these plants, this Kunti plant. The caterpillars will eat these, strip them bare, but the plants come back.
Right, right. And that's a good point you bring up, is that when you have a butterfly garden, or when you're trying to create one, realize that you're going to have some plants that don't look as pretty as when you first put them in, but they always seem to come back.
Yeah, and if you want something that's manicured, perfectly landscaped, not a chunk out, it's going to take a lot of work to do that.
Yeah.
These are plants that are going to be attracting wildlife, so you should expect that you'll see things eating it.
Yeah.
This particular plant, we've found the majority of the Atalas that are eating these, the caterpillars, by the way, they're a little bright red with yellow dots on them, the caterpillars, and they pupate and emerge into full-grown butterflies that are black with almost like a turquoise sheen to it. Absolutely gorgeous. But we're finding the majority of them east of the railroad tracks and on the island. So if you have any of these Kunti plants in those areas, there's a chance you might get those Atala butterflies.
And this is another native that you've got too. So.
Yep. There's another one, cardboard plant, which is very similar, but
it's
the
not
Atalas,
native.
The Atalas don't go to that. I've never known them to do that. So this is one that we would want.
And the Kunti makes a great ground cover. Massing of Kuntis is a great way to...
Oh, yeah. They're a little bit on the expensive side, though.
They're slow growing.
Yeah, slow growing, a little on the expensive side. One of the other plants is really any of the wild coffees, and there are many different kinds of wild coffees.
There are, yeah.
This particular one, I love the genus and species on this. Some people, they cringe when they have to learn a new genus and species. It's too scientific-y.
Yeah.
But this one I particularly, Psychotria nervosa.
Yeah, it kind of tells you like coffee makes you nervous, right?
Yeah, nervous psyche, nervous mind, I don't know.
Yeah.
But personally, I would never drink the coffee that came from this. But it does have little red fruit certain times of the year, and you see that right now it's got the white flowers on it.
Right.
And as soon as they're pollinated, as long as they're the female flowers,
then the berries will form.
They'll have the berries on them.
Yeah.
This is one that you will have rodents going to it from time to time, but you'll also have some of the fruit-eating birds and other wildlife going to it.
That's correct.
So, and there's also a dull-leafed wild coffee that, I don't know, they're all a little different.
They're all,
Yeah.
and there's even a form that's been modified to be dwarf, Bohemian coffee type. So that you're right, there's quite a few that actually will grow here.
Yeah. So, just kind of experiment with these and ask a naturalist or ask a master gardener or an extension agent, and we'll definitely give you a recommendation or an opinion, an informed opinion.
Well, and that plant right there is one. Coffee's one that likes shade. So if you're going to put it in your environment, make sure you've got some shady. But it's good to have a little shade for butterflies too.
Yeah, and it's definitely an understory plant.
Yeah.
So, and then in my bucket of plants, this one, oaks. Anytime you have oaks in your landscape, well, what critters would come to oaks?
Lots of squirrels will come to oaks,
Yeah.
of course. But there's other, of course, insects that come to oaks. So lots of birds are insect eaters, so it's good to have oaks because they provide lots of food. And then, of course, there's the nuts that the squirrels like.
Yep. Those acorns, there are some that have acorns every year and others that have acorns every 2 years. My recommendation is just to put them out there in the landscape and let nature take its course. And sooner or later, something will get out there. You'll see the squirrels probably first and the birds shortly thereafter. But these really don't take much time for them to grow out. You would want to make sure that you have plenty of space for these.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's usually more recommended that you go with a live oak versus a laurel because you'll have it for a longer period of time.
On my property, I actually have 4 of these, and I'm on a 1/4 acre lot. It's too much.
Yeah, people
And-
make that mistake because when they plant things, they're small
Yeah.
and not realize how big they get. So it's a very good point to learn when you're doing a garden to attract wildlife is know how big these things will get.
And I'm sure that the 4 were put on property because it was part of some code.
Yeah, requirement.
Yeah.
4 natives be planted. Yeah, probably so.
But anyhow, acorns, and anytime you have an oak, and whether it's a live oak or a laurel, and if you're on that scrubby area, that Atlantic dune, there are some very unique types of oaks
Right.
that will go out there too. So those people that are up by the railroad tracks in eastern St. Lucie County, whole different complement of oak trees out there.
And wildlife.
A whole different type of wildlife
Yeah.
too. High and dry. It's almost like an ancient island out there.
Right.
It probably was
Right.
at one point. So here, that's one other plant. So I'll kind of push my pile of plants over to
Okay.
you. I also have these. Of course, you know what these are.
Yeah, porterweed.
Yep. There are several different types of porterweeds. I picked a purple one, the large purple one, but there's also a coral color. It's not quite red, not quite pink, not quite orange.
Coral really describes it well.
Yeah, I think coral is a good color, calling it that. The neat thing about these porterweeds, they get these whorls of flowers, and every morning they tend to fall off, and you get a fresh whorl of flowers. So, and then there are different sizes. This one, of course, is large. The coral color is large as well. And then we have this other one, this blue one, which tends to be a little bit shorter.
It's probably there is a native one, so that could be the native tends to be smaller.
I've also seen bright red ones at garden centers.
Yeah.
It's a variety. I don't think wildlife would probably, the butterflies probably wouldn't be attracted to it quite so much. But why not try it? You can
Something
put it
adds a
out
little
there.
more color.
Yeah. So here are 2 more.
And those are ones that butterflies would probably nectar on, right?
Yeah, the butterflies would flutter around in there. and they
Or
would get
hummingbirds, for
nectar.
that matter. Most things that butterflies like, hummingbirds like as well. So.
Well, the thing about the hummingbirds, people might not ever see them, but if you have a coral porterweed, that reddish color, a large reddish, and maybe you have some reflective tint on a window that's near, if you get inside the window, inside the house, and watch that coral porterweed, you're probably going to see hummingbirds come to it from time to time. But they're so skittish that
Any movement
they're in
you
and
make,
out.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
the shadow
they move away.
moves and they're gone.
Yeah.
And they're really tiny too. Most people probably don't realize, but hummingbirds are only about that big.
Right.
They're almost the size of a bumblebee, a little smaller,
Yeah.
a little larger than that.
We have some at the office that go for the bromeliad, the acmea that has the tall flower spike, and it goes over there and it just flits around really quickly.
Yeah. Really, really fast.
Really, really quick, yeah. You have to catch it pretty quick.
So this.
this is one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, I know you want to say the name.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Camellia patens, right?
Camellia patens.
Or firebush.
You know, that almost sounds like it would be a nice baby, a nice
Yeah,
child's name.
Camellia could be a nice
would be-
name, couldn't it? Yeah.
But yeah, this is one that you would definitely want in your landscape. Probably not something you'd want too close to the house, because these are fairly large when they're fully grown out. But if you go to Paleo Hammock or any of the other nature natural areas, the preserves in St. Lucie County, and they have these Himalaya patens, you're going to see a lot of zebra longwing butterflies and others. It's really good to get out there on these natural areas right around noon, full sun, warmest time of the day. Find one of these plants and just stake it out with your camera.
Yeah.
And you're going to see a lot of activity.
Yeah.
And sometimes on a weekend, that's what I'll do. I'll get out there with my camera and take some really great pictures. But yeah, and how big do you think these would get? I would say probably about 15 feet.
Well, there's
at
a
the most.
couple. There's the native variety, which easily can get 15 feet tall. And the more shade it gets, it seems the taller they get. But there is a dwarfer variety that only gets about 6 or 8 foot tall.
Yeah. Well, and also this has that red tubular flower.
Right.
So I would assume that we're probably also going to get hummingbirds to this as well.
Absolutely.
So Himalaya patens, one of our personal favorites.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And probably the flowers. We always like flowers.
Yeah.
Right? Or like that.
Okay. Citrus. Citrus is good, and this is kind of an unusual citrus. Wild lime.
Right.
And this particular one, I took a little cutting from the Manatee Center. I hope they don't mind. I went over there and I clipped it. But this actually has little lemons or little limes on it, right? And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take it, I'm going to squish it in my fingers and pass it to you.
It smells like lime?
It smells like lime.
Oh, yeah.
Real strong.
Yeah, very strong, yeah.
So cool. This would be a nice plant. There are some butterflies that their caterpillars like to have citrus plants to chew on. Some of the swallowtails like that.
Yeah.
And if you ever have a citrus, it could be an orange tree or a grapefruit tree or even one of these, and you see something that looks like bird droppings.
Yeah.
It might be a butterfly caterpillar.
Yeah, that orange dog they call them, the giant swallowtail.
And it's just a form of mimicry. Birds would not want to eat bird droppings, so the caterpillars mimic bird droppings. I don't know.
They're pretty clever.
But yeah, one thing about this, it does have little thorns on it. You know, so people should be a little
bit careful. Yeah.
And it does get to be tree size. The one at the Manatee Center was about 20 feet tall. Nice size. Yeah, it grows out. It does take a little while though to grow it out.
Yes, slow grower.
Yeah, and we'll have little flowers on it from time to time.
And little fruits.
Yeah, little tiny. And by the way, the limes never get any larger than this. And we were lucky to find them because they're here. And then they're gone. Yeah, you have to wait a whole year for them to come back. Wow. So if you want a lime in the landscape, this is the one to go with.
Very good.
We're having a little compost pile going on here.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, and then, of course, planting a butterfly garden, we really can't do it without talking about Asclepias.
Yeah, the milkweed.
The milkweeds. And there are a number of different types of milkweeds out there. Some are native and some are not. And working with a master gardener or a master naturalist, somebody with the Native Plant Society, we can help you figure out which ones. Monarchs and other butterfly caterpillars love these.
Right.
And I noticed in my landscape that the coldest time of the year, January, is when I see the monarch caterpillars on these the most. Oh. And if I trim them back that time of the year, sooner or later I'll see caterpillars coming out because, you know, I didn't see them, they were so small. And when we're talking about caterpillars, of course, the eggs are there first.
Right.
So the butterflies, the females, lay the eggs on the milkweed or whatever the host plant is. Very specific. They won't just lay it on anything. The host plant has to be specific to the butterfly.
Right.
So you'll have a monarch butterfly lay an egg on this, and it might be a little tiny thing, look like a grain of sand.
Right.
It might be that tiny.
Right. And they're usually underneath, too, usually,
underneath,
right? Yeah.
And sometimes they're slightly yellow, it depends. And if you had a magnifier, get a little hand lens, get out there and look at all the details, you might notice the eggs then. And let it hatch out, and they'll hatch out into caterpillars. They'll chew some of this plant up. And these plants, by the way, are toxic. So what the caterpillars will do is they'll get that toxic compound inside their bodies, and it makes them toxic, and also makes the adults toxic.
Right.
So the birds stay away from it.
Yeah. They usually learn pretty quickly that they're not very tasty.
Yeah, and that's one of the rules of thumb in nature. Anything that has black and white striping, anything that's got yellow or red, except for birds, it doesn't work with birds. The caterpillar for monarchs have black and white striping with a shade of yellow in there.
Right.
So that is a warning signal to birds and other critters. Do not eat this because it is toxic.
Yeah.
So somehow they learn that in wild. But yeah, so, and the nice thing about this is they reseed themselves, and if you have them growing in the front of your house,
You'll have them in the back of the house.
they'll have them in the back of the house.
Yeah.
But there are ones that vine. There are quite a few. So that's milkweeds. And then I think this is our last plant, and one of the easiest plants to grow.
Oh, right.
Hibiscus.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for butterflies. The flower's a little bit too complex for a butterfly. They need to have something a little bit smaller that they can land on and get that little proboscis out so they can lap the nectar. But in the landscape, gopher tortoises love this.
Oh, they like the flowers.
They love the flowers. So if it's low enough to the ground, remember gopher tortoises are about ankle high.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So if you have flowers that are about ankle high, you know,
Flowers about ankle high.
ankle high, and sometimes you can,
Well, I guess when they fall,
Yeah,
they'll be
sometimes.
ankle high then.
yeah, and so what'll happen is they'll see those flowers, they'll eat them. And now some of the plants that I don't have here, and you'll see them growing in natural areas, pawpaw.
That's a really popular one,
Yeah.
especially for the zebra longwing. And, you know.
Gopher tortoises love pawpaw.
Okay.
There are a lot of critters out there in natural areas that will just eat that up, and it's got a very aromatic odor to the flower. I think it smells almost like anisette, kind of a black licorice odor to it.
Okay.
Very pungent, very strong.
I don't think I've smelled it before.
Yeah, you have to get your nose right into it, though, to smell it.
Okay.
And normally when I'm out there in natural areas, I don't pick the flowers. These were in landscape, so I don't
Right.
mind trimming back a little landscape.
Right.
But out in natural areas, if you had a pawpaw, I don't pick the flowers. It's just my ethics. I don't do it. So what I'll do, and what I do with your master gardeners when we go on hikes, I'll get on my belly, I'll get underneath the plant, I'll put my nose in it, and I'll smell it, and I'll ask the master gardeners who are interested to try it too.
Oh, okay.
And they'll get down real low to the ground and smell it, because the plant itself only grows
Oh,
like
just
that
what the gopher tortoise likes. He likes the low-growing one.
And so the gopher tortoises will eat the flower, but they'll also eat the leaves, and they'll eat it right down to the root.
Wow.
So pawpaw would be another one that would be desirable out there.
Well, these are some really good ideas, and thank you for sharing all of this. And if you guys have more information that you'd like to learn about for how to attract wildlife to your landscape, how to incorporate some of the plants we've just shown you, or even how to find more native plant materials that Mr. Joelle shared with us, give us a call at our office or even send us an email, and we'll be glad to help you out. Until next time, and our next adventure, bye for now.